Okay, so we did a lab on why pendulums synchronize when they're on the same wall or same surface. And Christian Huygens, the inventor of the pendulum clock, noticed that this happened when he was sick once in bed. And he had two pendulum clocks on the same wall, and they synchronized their swings to go in opposite directions eventually. And we wanted to figure out why that happened. And that's basically our purpose here. Our hypothesis, we believed that they synchronized because each time they swing, they sort of like affect each other, almost like pushing the other one or pulling it towards them, so that like the swings would eventually get oppositely matched up. If that makes any sense. We'll hopefully explain that better at the end.
Okay, so the second part of our intro, the equipment that we use were like two metronomes, something that can record a video. So whether that's like iPhone, whatever, some cardboard, two empty soda cans, Logger Pro, and some way to get your video on Logger Pro, and time and patience. And then our background. I accidentally forgot to put the 2 pi in the square root in the period equation, but yeah, G provides the restorative force for the pendulum, and yeah, so mg sine theta, where theta is the angle between L and the equilibrium point at the current point, so yeah.
And then I already said the story thing there, so. This is our setup, and to sort of put it to pendulum clocks, we didn't really have just two pendulum clocks lying around anywhere. So we got two metronomes instead because they function similarly to pendulum clocks. And first, we tried it in three different situations. The first one was on two separated surfaces, and then the second one was on a piece of cardboard on some wheels. And we put those wheels there to sort of speed up the process, because otherwise it would take like days for them to actually synchronize. Like, because they synchronized, we found out, we guessed that they synchronized through the surface, since they synchronize when they're on the same wall. So, yeah, that's why we did that. And then the last one, to try and get it the most like pendulum clocks, we had one piece of cardboard vertically stuck into a horizontal piece of cardboard, and on either side was a metronome that would be swinging back and forth. And yeah, so each time, except for the last one, we took a video of the two metronomes. And then from the video, we took down the time that they would pass through the center and make a little click. And these are graphs of the time between two subsequent clicks. So like the time between one metronome clicking and the other metronome clicking. And this is on two separate surfaces, and this is on the same. So on this, you can see that it just goes up and down pretty linearly. And you can think of it almost like beats in sound, like two waves have different frequencies, and they'll go and synchronize, and then they'll also go out of it. And then in this one, they start off synchronize, go unsynchronized, synchronize, and then it's not linear, like curves, so you can see that they're sort of affecting each other. And then eventually at the end, they were synchronized for much longer than any of the other periods of time that they were synchronized in the other videos, which happened basically by accident.
Yeah, so in our lab, we didn't really have error, so we just kind of did qualitative analysis. So we basically, like, our experiment, like, confirmed our hypothesis, like, that when they're on, like, two pendulums are on the same surface, that they're going to synchronize in a certain amount of time. But, like, when they're synchronized, when they, like, actually get synchronized, they're actually swinging in opposite directions. And then we found that had to be, like, through a disturbance through, like, the surface of that they're on, because, like, they didn't actually synchronize on different surfaces. And then this disturbance actually changed, like, the restorative force of, like, each pendulum, and so then it changed the period as well. So yeah, they ended up synchronizing opposite directions because, like, the restorative forces of each other, like, cancel each other out pretty much.
So there are like two ways you can think about it. One way is that the board or the surface doesn't really want to move at all. So they synchronize in the opposite direction so that the forces will cancel out and the whole system will be in equilibrium. And the other way is they synchronize because they're swinging on the board, and if they swing on the board, they'll want to move the board a little bit. And there's nothing else to like influence their swings except for the board, since that's the only thing they're in contact with. So by swinging and pushing the board a little, they push the other pendulum a little bit. So they're like influencing each other until eventually they reach the point where they're swinging equally in opposite directions and they can't move the board at all to influence the other pendulum. And that's
Pretty much it.
yeah.
Thank you. We have time for questions.
So, does this have anything to do with resonant frequency?
Are you asking if like sound played any effect in synchronizing?
No, I mean there's still a frequency of the pendulums. So, as you rotate, as they come together and start to synchronize, is there like a resonant frequency that they always approach?
That's a good question.
In your write-up,
Sure.
you had some stuff that could answer this question. You,
Really?
believe it or not, you had the equation for period, and you went into the elements of that equation that could have been affected by the other pendulum. Do you remember those statements?
Yeah. I think, kind of remember that. Not the explicit statements, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great question indeed.
Hey, Dylan, you can go.
And so, can you re-explain what putting the board on the wheels did versus just spinning
Okay,
it?
yeah. So putting the board on the wheels meant that the board could more easily move back and forth. So otherwise, it would take like a long time because the effect on the other board would be so small because they wouldn't be able to move the board as
Okay,
much.
that makes sense.
Annie?
So were the pendulums identical in like mass
Yes.
and length?
I bought two exactly identical measurements.
So then why wouldn't they just be synced up all the time?
Because manufacturers are bad.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
To get the boards in equilibrium, did you have to place the pendulums like a certain distance across from each other? Like was there, depending on the center of mass of like the boards, or could you place them anywhere?
Actually, without really trying to, I sort of placed them equally from the center of mass, now that I'm thinking about it. But
Didn't
I
take
don't
that
know if
into
it would
account.
really... If they weren't equally on each side, the board would tip over, so...
Kind of would have ruined the whole thing if we didn't put them equally.
Only if they were on a single can, but you had them on
Yes.
multiple cans.
Yeah.
Just had the center of mass within that range of one can to the other.
Okay.
Why did you have to do the pendulums like next to each other and then like?
I had them next to each other so that I could get a video, and then on the back, I couldn't figure out, like if I had them on the same side, it would fall over this way. So to keep it balanced, I had them on either side, but then I couldn't take a video, so that's why we didn't have graph for the third part. But they did synchronize going in opposite directions. So.
Thanks again.